The world sucks. It was because of you and your teaspoon drawer and how you closed it. Happy now?
Mine.
I love this study. I think it's a perfect use of scientific resources.
Science.
Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the case of the disappearing teaspoons. Backstory. In 2004, 3 intrepid scientists from the Centre of Epidemiology and Population Health Research in Melbourne, Australia, decided to do a study on the disappearance of teaspoons in a workplace environment, namely where they worked, and had noticed that teaspoons seemed to wander off unchaperoned, and when it came time for them to stir their own tea or to put some sugar in to sweeten their little cup of coffee, teaspoons could not be found.
There is no spoon.
So the objective of the study, let me read it to you, to determine the overall rate of loss of workplace teaspoons and if the displacement had some sort of correlation with the type of teaspoon and the kind of tea room it was in. Australians. I swear. So this is what they did. Over a 5-month period, they placed 70 teaspoons.
You use it to nourish your body.
Throughout the building. I can't remember how many tea rooms they said there were. 5 maybe? 140 employees. The teaspoons themselves they had marked very stealthily and numbered, I believe, so that they could track them over the course of this 5 months. Some teaspoons were bog standard stainless steel teaspoons that you'd get in any old tea room. Some were slightly higher quality. To determine if the perceived value of a teaspoon would maybe make someone a bit more respectful of it and not filch it.
One can spend enormous amounts of money on quality.
The results were staggering. Of the 70 teaspoons, 56 legged it. Well, they didn't leg it themselves. They were portaged away by willing thieves. Well, office miscreants, I guess. 56! That's 80% of teaspoons. Gone. Wandered off to new homes. Now, a home could mean literal home, like into the satchel, into the car, off to the suburbs or wherever. Home could just mean a new home in a drawer at a desk where, I could say, well, I will always have a teaspoon to stir here. You never know when you're going to need a teaspoon. Remember how I said some were bog standard stainless steel teaspoons while others were like slightly higher? Maybe we're talking like a Kmart teaspoon and a Pottery Barn teaspoon. Can you get teaspoons at Pottery Barn? Either way, no difference.
Even government doesn't care that much about quality.
I don't think people put any monetary value on a teaspoon. They're just seen as like, there's a teaspoon. Doesn't cost anything. Whatever. This was 2004. Last time I was in a tea room, I don't even think there were teaspoons. I think they're like little recyclable cardboardy kind of sticks that you're supposed to stir things with and just throw it away in this, consumable world where we just don't give a regard. Stop. Let it go.
Throw it away.
So 5 months has passed. They let everybody in on the fact that they've been guinea pigs. In this study, they give people the opportunity to return spoons. Of the 56 taken, how many do you think came back? This many fingers? 5. One of the ones that came back had been missing for 20 weeks. Do you think it was like a guilty teaspoon conscience? Now, another result, a little bit of teaspoon math here, they concluded that to keep the happy level of 70 teaspoons throughout the office environment, the corporate boffins would have to purchase 250 teaspoons annually in order to maintain that lovely little fluid equilibrium of teaspoons. Isn't that fun? Now, the study's final conclusion was this. Let me read it to you. And I quote, "The loss of workplace teaspoons was rapid, showing their availability, and hence office culture in general, is constantly threatened."
Are you threatening me?
Harsh words. The teaspoon, while not endangered, is definitely under threat
Are you threatening me?
in an office environment.
The spoon's worst enemy.
Let's take a huge leap. This week's post was called "The Teaspoon Drawer of the Soul." Which is not as catchy a title as "The Case of the Disappearing Teaspoons," but that was already taken. And plus mine was different because I took this whole idea of teaspoons and thought, what can teaspoons represent?
The most useful of utensils in the cutlery drawer.
Somehow I ended up with this idea of your soul being a cutlery drawer, the soul cutlery drawer, filled with, your regular knives, forks and such, but also oodles of teaspoons. Teaspoons which represent emotional rather than practical things. Things that people would turn to you for, that you would give willingly, freely, and with love. It's a riddle spoon. I like riddles. A riddler! The way I saw it in the post was that you had different teaspoons for different situations. So you would have a teaspoon of empathy. Empathy, yes! A teaspoon of understanding. There would be a teaspoon of compassion. Some teaspoons could be used by another person to dig themselves out of a depression hole or a sadness hole. All these teaspoons would be things that people would turn to us for. Seeing our drawer open, they could simply take of the teaspoon and experience the comfort or whatever the teaspoon was for.
Without the spoon, you'd be a nobody.
I should be holding a teaspoon. The teaspoons are a metaphor. Riddler! There was a teaspoon of listening in there, which I think is the easiest teaspoon to have. You always got more listening teaspoons than any other teaspoon in the drawer. There is no money spoon. Money is practical. It does not fit in the drawer. People may still ask you for it. But don't feel like you have to give that teaspoon. There's no such teaspoon for money. You need to participate in the teaspoon economy. There is the free flow of teaspoons across communities, across the world. And that's what keeps society going, is this constant exchange of compassion and empathy and understanding and love and listening and allowing people to turn to us to ask for things. Open your drawer. Give freely of your teaspoons. It's all we've got in this teaspoon economy. A lot of riddles today. Now, there is a temptation to keep the drawer closed, to withhold our teaspoons in case we ourselves need one. And you reach into your own drawer and all the spoons are gone because you've just been giving so freely of all your teaspoons. Where's my teaspoons? You can't think like that. Part of the difficulty of being human, I've noticed, is that it can feel like you're giving a lot and not getting much in return. And I think the challenge of life is to work out how to be okay with that. And I mentioned karma in the post, and I think, as a person that believes in this idea of eventually something will come back to you, you can't lose faith in the system. The system, like it's a regulated thing. It's not a system. It's just a way of being, I guess. Which is the same with the teaspoon economy. You got to trust that teaspoons will come back. They won't be the same teaspoons that have gone out of your drawer. You'll be able to get teaspoons from other people. I'm saying the word teaspoons a lot and I have no regrets. Now, the stock on the global teaspoon exchange is constantly fluctuating up and down, like the level of teaspoons in the tea rooms of an office building. You must always trust that the stock will keep getting replenished up and down, flowing, a fluid economy. And as long as that keeps moving, we all get rich. Spiritually, from teaspoons. You get me? Riddler. Watch not the market fluctuations of teaspoons. Trust in the teaspoon economy. Does it bother you that I talk in riddles? It makes me look a little insane, but I'm reaching my cat lady years, so
Would you describe yourself as cat competent?
I better get cracking on that. We're on a journey, guys. What does it cost to give teaspoons, to give empathy, compassion, all that shit? Not that it's shit. Nothing. It costs you nothing. Unless you consider having some sort of moral code a cost. I say in the post that the sense of individual has eclipsed the sense of community. I'm an individual. Which I personally find heartbreaking. It's all, me. And even the teaspoon study speaks to this and brings up an essay that was about cattle grazers grazing their cattle on the commons being shared grazing land. The essay talks about the destruction of these commons by individual grazers at the expense of the community. Now, if every herder takes the same approach and they all start grazing the land, then it becomes overgrazed and useless for everybody.
You're ruining it for the rest of us!
So too with spoons. Here's a quote. Teaspoon users, consciously or otherwise, make decisions that their own utility is improved by removing a teaspoon for personal use, whereas everyone else's utility is reduced by only a fraction per head. So they basically think to themselves, well, there are plenty of spoons, no one's going to miss this one. As more and more teaspoon users make the same decision, there's plenty more spoons, no one's going to miss this one, the teaspoon commons is eventually destroyed. I bet you never thought teaspoons could be quite so dramatic. Where am I going with this? I'm glad you asked. Because although it doesn't directly correlate, the teaspoon soul draw, it's not that people are continually taking the teaspoons. It's that if I close my drawer so that nobody can take teaspoons because I figure there are plenty other people out there that can do it, I don't need to do it. If everyone starts doing that, keeping their little teaspoons for themselves, withholding, that guy's not doing it, so I might as well shut my drawer because there's plenty of other people out there that are empathetic. I don't need to be empathetic. I don't need to bother myself with the vagaries of life and learning about things and educating myself. I can just close my drawer, and should I need it, it'll be there for me, and I can just be all about me. Look at my spoons. I got all the spoons! I'm an individual. Pretty soon, there's no empathy in the world. The world sucks. It was because of you and your teaspoon drawer and how you closed it. Happy now? I'm teaspoon rich! Is that what we want? It's not what I want. I'm not a communist. Am I a socialist? I'm a human. I'm a human being. You should try it. Sorry, not you. I'm not talking to you. You're great. I'm talking to the... Who am I talking to? Nobody.
Listen to me. The spice must flow.
The teaspoons need to flow. They need to be flowing in all directions in the global teaspoon economy. We need to be better as a community and not just about ourselves. This is just me on my soapbox. I know it sounds woke and liberal and all that shit and whatever. I'm so into being a good human. I think it's something to aspire to. And I may get taken advantage of, and I may end up getting buried in a pauper's grave, but at least I will know. Well, I'll be dead. But while I'm on this earth, I have set myself a moral code by which I live, and my moral code includes the drawer being open. Please take a teaspoon. But like I said, it's not money and I don't have any, so don't ask me for money. Here's another quote from that study. The high level of dissatisfaction with teaspoon coverage identified in our follow-up survey shows that teaspoons are an essential part of office life. You can see where I'm going with this. The world needs more compassion teaspoons. The world needs more empathy teaspoons. The world needs more teaspoons of delivering comfort to those who are in need, depressed, sad, lonely. What the world needs now. The world needs more teaspoons. Friend, may your drawer always be open. Riddler! We create our own realities. If we see ourselves as being unbendable, we do not bend. Uri Geller.
Very soon, the metal will become soft.
He could bend spoons.